In 2025, a U.S. strike reportedly hit a girls' school in Iran.
Yeah.
And the really wild thing is the intelligence they used to authorize that strike wasn't necessarily wrong. It was just expired.
Right. It was totally out of date.
Today, we're looking at what happens when the world's most advanced military relies on a target database that hasn't been refreshed in 5 years. So, welcome to Caught on the Hill, where we break down the most important moments from official U.S. government hearings, briefings, and public proceedings.
They do.
Almost every day, elected officials, agency leaders, and government spokespersons make statements on the record that shape the national conversation. But, for most people, there is simply too much to watch, too much to sort through, and too little time to follow every hearing from start to finish.
Oh, absolutely. It's overwhelming.
Right. That's where this podcast comes in. Caught on the Hill is built to help you quickly understand what happened, what was said, and why it matters. Everything begins with the actual public proceeding itself, the hearing, briefing, or official event where these exchanges took place. From there, we highlight the key moments and present them in clear, accessible discussions designed to cut through confusion without adding partisan noise. Before we begin, a quick disclosure. This audio may sound fully human, but it is created with the assistance of AI tools designed to help make complex public proceedings easier to digest.
Yeah.
Even so, this is not an automated process without oversight. Human creators are actively involved in selecting the material, shaping the presentation, and putting real effort into making each episode informative, balanced, and worth your time.
For sure.
In this deep dive, we'll walk through the most important exchanges, the central points raised during the hearing, and the bigger questions that emerged along the way. This is Caught on the Hill. Let's begin.
Let's do it.
So our mission today focuses on a recent, honestly, highly revealing hearing. We're looking at the Defense Intelligence Enterprise leaders testifying on the fiscal year 2027 budget and global threats.
Yeah, and the lineup for this testimony was basically the central nervous system of American defense.
Heavy hitters.
Total heavy hitters.
Yeah.
You had the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, Bradley Hansel. Sitting right next to him was General Rudd, who was the commander of U.S. Cyber Command and director of the NSA.
Right.
And then rounding out the panel, you had Lieutenant General Adams from the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, and Lieutenant General Breedenkamp from the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the NGA.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because for anyone listening who wants a 30,000-foot view, how do these four massive, sprawling entities actually stitch together to function as a single enterprise?
Well, think of them as a global sensory and synthesis system. They're designed to create what they call decision advantage.
Decision advantage.
Right. Because they ingest just an incomprehensible stream of data. I mean, human intelligence from operatives, signals intercepted across global fiber optic networks, geospatial data tracking, physical movement on the ground.
It's just a fire hose of information.
It really is.
Yeah.
And their mandate isn't just to observe the world. It's to filter out the deafening noise of the global data sphere so they can give military commanders actionable foresight. They basically need to map the adversary's next move before the adversaries even finalize the plan.
Wow.
But what's fascinating here is that the baseline requirement for achieving that has fundamentally shifted, and it's because of the current behavior of foreign actors.
Yeah, and that shift in behavior was really the focal point of DIA Director Adams's opening testimony. Because instead of looking at these threats as, isolated regional issues...
Like China and the Pacific, Russia and Europe.
Exactly, like they're in silos. She laid out this pattern of global convergence. I mean, we are looking at over 1,200 Chinese surveillance satellites currently on orbit.
Yeah.
Combine that with a Russian military that is dramatically expanding its drone warfare, even while sustaining over 1 million casualties.
Which is staggering. But then you layer in North Korea, right? Deploying 12,000 troops to support Moscow, plus launching ballistic missiles. And Iranian proxies continuously attacking U.S. positions.
Right. The sheer volume of those statistics is sobering enough, but the actual mechanism of how they cooperate is what the intelligence community is really flagging here.
Yeah, because these are not isolated data points anymore. When North Korean ballistic missiles and Iranian one-way attack drones are used by Russian forces in Ukraine, Moscow is actually feeding real-time battlefield telemetry back to them.
Oh, wow. So they're getting performance data.
Exactly. They feed it straight back to Pyongyang and Tehran. And the combat experience that those 12,000 North Korean troops are gaining That's being exported directly back to the DMZ.
So some analysts have described this as a massive dark corporate merger, but to me, that analogy feels almost a bit too organized.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Because from the testimony, it sounds less like a formal corporate merger and much more like an open source software project for autocracies.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right, because they aren't signing these ironclad mutual defense treaties like we do. It's highly transactional. They just upload their battlefield data, bypass Western sanctions collectively, and just download each other's drone schematics.
Yeah, that is a much more accurate framework. And the intelligence leaders explicitly confirmed that this partnership is currently shallow. They don't have the formal command structures of NATO, for instance.
But it's still dangerous.
Highly dangerous. The frictionless sharing of technology and tactics is entirely unprecedented.
Okay.
So, Undersecretary Hansel outlined this two-pronged strategy to disrupt this open source autocracy, as you call it.
Okay, what's the strategy?
First, a massive investment in highly survivable space-based intelligence and reconnaissance networks. And second, weaving together the legal and technical authorities of our own alliances, primarily the Five Eyes network.
Let's drill down into that weaving of authorities, because the hearing made it very clear this isn't just about, sharing PDF reports with allies. It's structural. I mean, DIA Director Adams literally has a 2-star general from Canada serving as her deputy director for coalition integration.
And it has to be structural. It really does. Mainly because of the legal limitations each country faces. The U.S. intelligence apparatus operates under strict domestic legal constraints regarding what it can actually collect.
Right. Americans spying on Americans is a huge red line.
Exactly. But when you integrate seamlessly with global partners, you create this sort of mosaic of legal authorities. Partner nations might have completely different operational jurisdictions or, technical accesses in regions where the U.S. is just legally blind.
So by fusing those collection capabilities at the analyst level, you basically buy down the shared risk.
Precisely. You cover each other's blind spots.
And this is the big but, tracking 1,200 Chinese satellites, cataloging Russian drone swarms, monitoring Iranian proxy networks, and then fusing all of that with Canadian and British intelligence that introduces a glaring mathematical impossibility.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because the volume of data is scaling exponentially, but human cognitive capacity just isn't. We can't process it fast enough.
Right. And that mathematical impossibility totally dominated the second hour of the hearing. Like every single leader at that table conceded that integrating machine learning and artificial intelligence, it's no longer an innovation initiative.
No, it's a functional requirement for survival. They literally cannot do their jobs without it.
Let's look at the mechanism of how this is actually being deployed. NGA Director Breedenkamp detailed their shift toward computer vision on commercial imagery.
Right.
And she pointed out a reality that completely alters the intelligence landscape. Adversaries now have access to the exact same commercial high-resolution satellite imagery that the U.S. does.
Yeah, it's crazy. Anyone with enough capital can just buy a real-time picture of a military port.
Exactly. The monopoly on observation is permanently broken. Because both sides can look at the exact same satellite photo, the strategic advantage shifts entirely from collection to analysis.
Right. And so the NG is deploying these computer vision algorithms, not just to spot, say, a submarine. They use it to extract what they call human geography.
Human geography, what does that actually look like in practice?
So the algorithm detects minute shifts in shipping container logistics, or maybe changes in the thermal signatures of industrial plants. And then it instantly cross-references that with historical baselines to flag anomalies.
Wow, so it finds the needles in the haystack.
Faster than an adversary's human analyst can even open the image file. It's all about speed.
And over at the Defense Intelligence Agency, they're applying a similar philosophy to the internet itself. They highlighted a tool called Postman, and this tool addresses the absolute chaos of open source intelligence.
Postman is fascinating. It works by scraping massive amounts of unstructured data. We're talking random telegram posts, regional news blogs, public flight tracking data, and it automatically tags it with metadata.
So an algorithm can instantly cross-reference a localized rumor of a troop movement in Eastern Europe with a shipping manifest uploaded in a completely different hemisphere.
Exactly. But to build tools like Postman, the DIA essentially had to bypass its own bureaucracy, which is wild to think about. Director Adams discussed this pilot program called Task Force Sabre.
Task Force Sabre sounds very sci-fi.
It really does. They basically quarantined their brightest analysts and technologists, handed them commercial AI tools alongside NSA-developed tech, and just let them experiment.
And it worked.
It worked so well that it evolved into the Defense Modernization Accelerator. It basically acts as a central hub where specific intelligence departments can request bespoke AI solutions for their unique data bottlenecks.
Okay, wait, let me push back on that seamless narrative for a second, because the military is notoriously siloed.
Oh, completely.
Are you telling me the NSA is just freely handing over its proprietary, highly classified AI tools to the DIA without any bureaucratic turf wars over funding or jurisdiction? I find that hard to believe.
Well, you'd be right to be skeptical, because the hearing exposed that exact friction. In fact, Chairman Jackson pointed out a glaring bureaucratic absurdity during the hearing.
Here's where it gets really interesting, folks.
Yeah. The Department of Defense keeps accidentally buying the exact same commercial AI software 3 times over.
3 times.
Literally. A vendor licenses a tool to Cyber Command, walks over to a different building, sells the same license to the NGA, and then does it again at the DIA.
That is just, it's peak government procurement. So the Pentagon is trying to use the Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office, the CDAO, to force these agencies to centralize their purchases.
Right. But Undersecretary Hansel warned that procurement is actually the simplest part of the equation here. The true hurdle is governance.
How so?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the cycle rate of policy changes required to securely share data across those interagency silos, while ensuring the AI models don't hallucinate or ingest poisoned data, that governance is going to be unprecedented.
Because the technology is outpacing the government's ability to rewrite the rule book on how to legally use it.
Exactly. The tech moves in days, the rule books move in years.
Yeah. Speaking of legal rule books and data collection, we have to talk about General Rudd's testimony regarding Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, because he stated bluntly that this authority is the cornerstone of Cyber Command's ability to detect threats.
Section 702 is complex, but the mechanism is vital to understand. It basically allows the U.S. government to compel American telecommunications companies to hand over the communications of targeted foreign individuals who are located outside the United States.
Right, outside the U.S. being the key phrase.
Exactly, because global internet traffic heavily routes through U.S. infrastructure. So foreign adversaries are often using American servers to plan cyber attacks or espionage. Section 702 allows the NSA to intercept that foreign data as it crosses domestic wires.
And that is exactly where the tension lies for the listener, because the debate is about the incidental collection of U.S. citizens' data when they interact with those foreign targets.
Yeah, the privacy advocates are very concerned about that.
Naturally. But General Rudd's argument is that without the speed and access provided by 702, Cyber Command is practically blind to foreign adversaries using U.S. networks to stage ransomware attacks on our own critical infrastructure.
Right. It is a direct trade-off between privacy firewalls and operational speed. You can't have both in this specific scenario.
And that tension between speed and friction brings us to honestly the most sobering segment of the testimony. Because we have talked a lot about vast data lakes, computer vision, and AI accelerators.
Yeah, the tech side.
But ultimately, intelligence is only a precursor to kinetic action. At some point, the algorithm hands a coordinate to a human being, and a human being has to pull the trigger.
Yeah. This transitions us perfectly from intelligence gathering to the reality of the targeting cycle, because the hearing got incredibly detailed about a system called the MIDB.
The Modernized Intelligence Database.
Right. It is the foundational ledger of military and infrastructure targets worldwide. Every single target in that database possesses a refresh interval.
A refresh interval, like an expiration date for the intelligence.
Basically, yeah. So a high-value military installation might be flagged to have its intelligence verified every 6 months. A secondary logistics hub might be on a 1-year cycle, and a generic warehouse might be placed on a 5-year refresh interval.
This is the core issue of data latency versus operational speed, because the intelligence community doesn't select targets for strikes. The combatant commanders out in the field do.
Exactly. A commander builds a strike package based on the data sitting in the MIDB. They can ask an agency like the DIA to vet the target for collateral damage estimations, but the agencies are reacting to the commander's timeline.
So if the underlying data in that database hasn't hit its refresh interval, a combatant commander might authorize a strike based on coordinates that were perfectly accurate 36 months ago.
But are tragically inaccurate today.
Which brings us back to the chilling moment we mentioned at the start of this deep dive. Ranking Member Crow pressed the panel on a public report regarding a U.S. strike that hit a girls' school in Iran. The devastating implication here is that the facility was previously a legitimate military target, but its function changed during a gap in the intelligence refresh interval. The U.S. military hit the right coordinates, but the wrong reality.
It's awful. And Director Adams declined to detail the specifics in an unclassified setting, obviously, but she confirmed that the tragedy is currently the subject of an active 15-6 investigation.
And just for context for the listener, a 15-6 is a formal, legally binding military fact-finding process. It's used to determine accountability in severe incidents.
Right, but she fully acknowledged during the hearing that staying current on those target refresh intervals across a rapidly shifting global landscape, it is one of the intelligence community's most critical vulnerabilities.
It is deeply unsettling to realize that the most advanced military apparatus in human history can be undone by an expired spreadsheet cell.
It really is.
And this reliance on human systems ties directly into Representative Ryan's aggressive questioning about the firing of General Cruz in August 2025.
Oh, that was a very tense exchange. It really highlighted the friction between objective analysis and political consequence.
Because public reporting heavily suggested General Cruz was dismissed due to internal conflicts over intelligence assessments, specifically regarding the feasibility of destroying Iranian nuclear sites.
Yeah, and Undersecretary Hansel refused to comment on personnel matters.
Yeah.
But Representative Ryan used that moment to demand that every uniformed leader present publicly reaffirm their commitment to delivering apolitical intelligence.
And they all did, naturally. They have to. But the exchange served as a massive reality check because we spend hours discussing algorithms as a panacea, as this magic bullet, but the system is entirely constrained by human flaws.
Entirely.
It's the risk of political pressure skewing an assessment, or it's a database administrator simply failing to update a file.
This raises an important question about where the actual bottlenecks exist today, because Director Adams pointed out that AI does not authorize strikes.
Right. There is no autonomous firing system.
No. The final law of war compliance, basically ensuring a strike is proportional and legal, is conducted by human JAGI officers. The military's legal teams are reviewing the data manually.
And we see that same human bottleneck crippling the integration of the very tech companies the Pentagon is begging for help from. Representative Ryan zeroed in on the catch-22 of SCFs.
Oh, the secure compartmented information facilities. The logistics here are maddening.
Break it down for us.
Okay, so the Defense Department desperately needs Silicon Valley's machine learning engineers to fix these data latency issues we just talked about.
Right, to fix the MIDB.
Exactly. But legally, those engineers cannot look at classified targeting data or satellite feeds unless they're sitting physically inside a certified SCIF.
And building a SCIF isn't just throwing up some drywall.
No, it takes millions of dollars and months, sometimes years, of construction. And on top of that, the individual engineers need top-secret clearances, which can take up to 2 years to adjudicate.
So you have a situation where the military is losing the artificial intelligence race, not because of a lack of technology, but because of an HR and real estate bottleneck.
Yes. They are exploring concepts like SCIF as a service, basically shared classified workspaces for commercial vendors. But currently, the physical drywall of secure rooms is actively stalling the AI revolution.
The irony is just palpable. The enterprise can track a drone swarm halfway across the globe in real time, but it can't quickly clear a software engineer to write the code to analyze it.
It's a huge problem.
So as we wrap up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why should you care about the refresh intervals of the MIDB or the deployment of computer vision at the NGA?
Well, because its hidden architecture fundamentally dictates the world you interact with.
Exactly. If you are tracking global supply chains that determine inflation and the cost of everyday goods, those chains are secured by this intelligence. If you are fiercely debating the balance between domestic data privacy and national security, that debate centers entirely on tools like FISA 702.
The effectiveness, the latency, and the human flaws within this enterprise, they shape the geopolitical stability of our daily lives. The policies debated in that room dictate whether a conflict is preempted quietly or escalates publicly.
So where does this leave us for the future?
Well, if we project forward based on NGA Director Breedenkamp's point about commercial imagery, we arrive at a really startling paradigm. If Beijing, Moscow, and Washington all have the exact same real-time satellite photos of the Earth—
because it's all commercially available now.
Right, and all three are furiously deploying AI to extract targeting data at machine speed. Intelligence ceases to be about discovery, becomes an algorithm fighting an algorithm to recognize a pattern a microsecond faster than the other guy.
Wow.
And if the future of global conflict is truly machine speed analysis, where exactly does human ethics, intuition, and the courage to question a faulty database fit into the wars of tomorrow?
That is a chilling thought, and it is exactly the kind of question that doesn't get answered in a single hearing. But it is the one we all need to be asking.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Caught on the Hill. We hope this breakdown helped cut through the noise and gave you a clearer picture of the machinery operating behind the headlines. Keep questioning the information around you, and we will catch you next time.